common. She was cousin to George Pickens, fame or group. And, and we met. I was 39. She was 19. I was her senior. But we were happily married for 32 years when she died prematurely. We had 8 children, 6 survived to adulthood, 2 boys and 4 girls. That's one of my daughters. My oldest son, casualty in the war in Southern Independence, he was only 23 when his life was taken. His death grieved me deeply. In 1847, I was elected the 13th governor of the state of Alabama. I was a staunch conservative, a Jacksonian Democrat, and a part. My greatest accomplishment was resolving the state's mid-19th century banking crisis and moving Alabama into a decade of prosperity in the 1850s. Along with some other families in Elton County, there's the family of Leroy Pope. You might have heard of him. He's a man known as the father of Huntsville. He's buried over there. But we did not settle in Huntsville. We settled in a beautiful part of the state just west of here, an area that would soon become known as Limestone County. And that's where I built my wife, Amelia, a beautiful plantation home. Columns out front, spiral staircase inside. It's still standing today. And I named that home Bell Manor. I love Bell Manor. I love living out in the country. Now, Amelia, she was raising our 11 children. She did not quite enjoy the out country living as much as I did. She wanted to have neighbors. So to make her happy, we built the second home. It's also still standing. It's on Williams Avenue in downtown Huntsville. It looks like almost identical to the home at Bell Manor. But in 1819, Limestone County elected me to represent them in the state constitutional convention that was held here in town. Once we had our constitution, my older brother William was elected as Alabama's very first governor. I was elected by Limestone County to the state Senate, and there I was unanimously elected as the president of the Senate. And that is where my story takes a tragic turn. My older brother, William Wyatt Bibb, the first governor of Alabama, was riding his horse during a thunderstorm in July of 1820 when a bolt of lightning, clap of thunder, spooked the horse. It threw him off. And a few days later, he died of his injuries. Now, in addition to mourning the loss of my brother, our Constitution at that time had next in line of succession, president of the Senate. That was me. So it fell to me to fulfill my brother's term in office. I was sworn in on July 25th, 1820, as Alabama's second governor. I was only governor for about a year and a half, and I won't bore you with what we got done. I say our greatest accomplishments. We established the State Bank of Alabama, and we also chartered the University of Alabama while I was governor. But after my brother's term was over, I did not seek one of my own, did not run for re-election. November 25th, 1821, Israel Pickens was sworn in to replace him. Well, I was not done with completely with state government just yet, though I did represent Limestone County in the State House of Representatives in 1828 and 1829. But the rest of my life, I spent happily at Bell Manor, or also here in Huntsville, where I served as the president of the State Bank, the State Bank building that's down on the square. But I was on a business trip in New Orleans, Louisiana in September of 1839 when I died of a sudden unknown illness at the age of 56. Now, in 1839, they had not mastered the science of embalming a body yet. So to get me back to Alabama, they opened up a large wooden barrel full of whiskey, folded me up, dunked me in, and resealed the lid. And that's how my family got my body. Now, I'm not buried in that barrel. They took me out and put me in a coffin, and I was buried right next to my beloved home of Bell Manor in Limestone County. Now, I know what you're thinking. I was buried there. What in the world am I doing here? Well, again, my wife, Amelia, she loved the home here in Huntsville. So after my death, she lived here almost exclusively. There were people in town that said, Mrs. Bibb, it's not right that your husband's buried on private property. He was a governor, state senator, state representative. He should be buried in a public place where the public can honor him. Well, she eventually agreed, had me dug up and reinterred right here. Now, this next thing I'm going to tell you, I'm not stating this fact. I'm just merely repeating what some people have said. Some claim to have seen the ghostly sight of the carriage bearing my coffin being pulled by 6 white horses running frantically up and down these avenues of Maple Hill Cemetery because it's my body looking for a way out of here and back to my beloved. Now, perhaps those exact same people have been drinking that stuff that was in that. I don't know. Last thing I'll tell you, you might not have heard of Bell Manor, but perhaps you've heard of Bell Mina. About 20 years after my death, the Memphis to Charleston Railroad was laying tracks near my former home. The foreman stopped and said, "What is the name of this place?" And a man with a very strong Southern accent answered, "Bell Mina." Well, that's what he wrote down on the map. Bell Mine, M-I-N-A. And the tiny community of Bell Mine is still in existence today. Citizens, thank you very much for taking the time to stop and speak with me today. Jeremiah Clemens. My daddy James moved here in 1812. Now, daddy was rich when he came here, which kind of explains how he immediately married Sarah Mills, who was from a well-to-do family. In fact, a prominent family because one of her brothers would represent Limestone County in the state legislature. Another brother was the sheriff of this county, Madison County. I was born in 1814, and everybody at the time, as neighbors will, said that I had every advantage, which I suppose I did, since my family was rich and powerful. When I was old enough, I went off to college. I went to LaGrange College, the University of Alabama, and then I went to Transylvania College, where I got my law degree. And I came back to Huntsville in 1834. I was 20 years old and opened a law office. They could do that then. And for all I know, they do it now, but they certainly could do it then. I got married to Mary Reed, who is the daughter of a Huntsville merchant. And I did something that I had a habit of doing. Trouble broke out with the Cherokee Nation, and I joined the Army as a private and went off to fight the Cherokee. Now, something you're going to notice over my life that I was drawn to military adventures. Besides being a lawyer, I was a politician. I was into politics fairly heavily. And I was a lifetime writer. In fact, if you happen to go by the Black Widow's grave, I wrote a pamphlet about her, talking about her 6 murders. Oh, excuse me, her 6 husbands who died, and she sued me. She's even going to mention it, I understand. I was a lifetime writer. I was in the military, and I was a politician. After going to fight the Cherokees, I was elected to the Alabama House of Representatives and served there for 3 years until trouble broke out between the Texans and the Mexicans. I raised a company of volunteers and went to Texas to fight in that war. Now, I left that time as a colonel. I came back. I ran this time for the U.S. House of Representatives, and I was elected and served for 3 years. And guess what happened then? The Mexican-American War happened. I joined the Army again and left that as a colonel. But after that, I ran for the U.S. Senate and served for 2 years. I was not reelected because I had joined the Union Party and campaigned for Zachary Taylor, and that was not popular in North Alabama. Lost my political support, so I just kind of backed off public life, going back to my writing and tending to my business. But I did come back and run for the U.S. House again, this time for the American Party, and I campaigned for Millard Fillmore. And once again, that wasn't popular. I lost all my support locally, and I went back to my writing, got out of public life. But this time I wrote some novels. I wrote 3 novels between 1856 and 1860. The most noteworthy is a fictionalized account called Rivals of what went on between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. And if you remember, Aaron Burr killed Alexander Hamilton. Well, despite the fact that I didn't have much public support, I was selected or elected to the Constitutional Convention of 1861. And the main reason to have that was to consider the Ordinance of Secession, which I was totally against. I was pro-union. I fought against the ordinance, but when it passed, I joined everybody else who signed it. But I immediately wrote a letter to several newspapers about how I didn't really like it, even though I signed it, and it was a terrible, wrong thing to do. Well, because of my military experience, I was given a general's commission in the Alabama militia. But I only did that for a short time before I quit, crossed the Union lines, and became an advocate for the Union and Abraham Lincoln. I campaigned for his reelection in 1864. And as you can imagine, anybody who knew me thought I was a traitor, anybody who knew me here. And especially after when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, I encouraged his successor, Andrew Johnson, to complete the abolition of slavery. Well, I died in 1865.
And the New York Times, believe it or not, published my obituary. And in it, it had a line which I find really interesting. It said he was never in favor of Davis's rebellion. They described the Civil War as being Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy's rebellion. Uh, I had one more novel published, and this is Tobias Wilson. Oh, I guess I need to mention that I have a distant cousin, Samuel Clemens. He was also a writer known as Mark Twain. Why they thought they needed to print his quotes out here, I'm sure I don't know. But in any case, Tobias Wilson, A Tale of the Great Rebellion, is about pro-union partisans fighting in North Alabama. And if you like, you could go online, just like you could for Cousin Samuel's books, and order yourself a copy. Tobias Wilson, A Tale of the Great Rebellion, the first book set during the Civil War. One other thing. Some 20 years ago, my house, which was downtown and on the National Register of Historic Places, was moved from the corner of Church and Clinton down to Pratt and Meridian, where it is right now. And I was actually, well, I can't tell you that. That's back when I was alive. And anyway, it was a big deal. And now there are law offices in that building. And I guess that's appropriate considering that I was a lawyer. I'm Jeremiah Clemens. So proud to meet all of you.
Thank you.